Hello YouTube chess lovers and my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to the 41st episode of Dirty Chess Tricks. In this episode, I'm going to show you a tricky line in bishops or the Vienna opening from the white perspective. After the move e4, e5, if you are a Vienna player, then the move order can goes like this: knight to c3, knight to f6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, d3, d6, and now the aggressive move f4, and we reach to the critical position of this line. The same thing goes for the bishop's opening player. After e4, e5 and bishop to c4, our line continues with knight to f6, d3, bishop to c5, knight to c3, d6 and f4. We pretty much reach to the same position. When I checked this position in online database, I found out that here knight to g4 is highestly played move. And in fact, it's a very logical move, as after this, black is indeed threatening the move knight to f2, nabbing the exchange. So what can be the wrong in this move? Well, yes, indeed, this move looks very threatening, except one fact, that white has invited black in his tricky camp, and the tricky business start with this innocent looking move f5. So it seems like black has created a threat and white has completely ignored it. Here two popular choices by black. Amongst them, if your opponent play the move h5, then I have attached some sample games in the PGN which will give you a very good idea how to play against the move h5. In this video, we are going to concentrate on the most logical move knight to f2, which attack two pieces and asking white, are you busted in the opening? Well, of course not, because here white has this ultimate reply, queen to h5. So right now white is threatening nothing but a checkmate on f7, and accordingly black needs to react. The correct move is g6, but of course we need to see first what happens if your opponent plays other logical moves. The first move I want to consider is castle, which looks very natural in this position, but in fact it's a blunder move, and here the simplest refutation start with bishop to g5, attacking the queen, and it doesn't matter wherever this queen goes. Let's say in this game black continues with queen to e8, but after the move knight to d5, no matter however black plays, he get completely lost position just within 9 moves of the game. For example, one game in database continues with bishop to b6, protecting the c7. White played knight to f3, and black continued with the logical move c6, ejecting the knight. Well, the same result will happen if black has taken the rook in the corner, because now white has played this finishing blow knight to f6. Black doesn't have any good option. Black has to take this knight, and here comes the whole point, bishop to f6. And probably black thinks that after the move bishop to e3, he is covering all the vital squares. But here comes the point behind playing the move knight to f3, as after the move knight to g5, there is no way black can survive anymore. So castle is completely out of the window, and so as queen to d7, as after this white has this super move bishop to e6, taking advantage of the pin, and after queen to e7 and knight to d5, black can hardly avoid the disaster in the opening. So all in all, here the obvious move is g6, attacking the queen, and white will continue with queen to h6. So it looks a bit strange because white has given up the whole rook, and it's not clear where the compensation lies. Here in majority of cases, black has tried these three options. Amongst them, if your opponent plays king to d7, then my recommendation is you should continue with knight to a4, and I have attached a model game in the PGN which in fact give the clear refutation of this move, so kindly check it out. Apart from it, the only accurate choice here is c6, and that we are going to see in detail. But the first question one need to be asked, what happens if black straight away take the rook? Well, here comes the simple refutation, bishop to g5. Two choices for the black. If he continue with queen to d7, then after knight to d5, black is in a big trouble as knight to f6 is going to appear on the board very soon. And one of my own game continues from here, queen to a4, getting out of that fork. I played queen to g7, attacking the rook, and after rook to f8 and knight captures c7. It's not about winning the piece back, but in fact, black king is going to be checkmated very soon. My opponent continues with king to d7. I capture the rook on f8, and he greedily captured my knight, which in fact turned out as a big time disaster, as after the move queen check, king to c6, queen captures c8, king to b6 and bishop to d8, it's a checkmate on the 16th move of the game. That means here only second choice left for the black is to play f6. But after this, white will continue with f captures g6. And this move is too strong for the black. For example, one game between two title players continues with f captures g5. White plays the natural move g7, and that rook has no point to hide. So black continues with king to d7, at least trying to support the rook. But there comes queen to e6 check, king to c6, queen to d5 check, king to d7, queen to f7 check, king to c6, bishop to b5 check, king to b6, and finally the deciding blow. Bam! So this move provides the disconnection between two brothers. And the cute point behind this move is, if black capture with either of the piece, let's say rook captures e8, then there comes queen to b3 check, king to c6, and queen to b5 is a pretty deadly checkmate. So considering both the games, it is ill-advised for the black to immediately capture the rook, and that's why many strong players here continues with c6, which in fact provide great restriction to the white pieces, and now black is all set to capture the rook in the corner. Well, amazingly enough, even after this move, white has the winning position, and the kickstart happens with bishop to g5. So as you can see, I have highlighted by the arrows, black has this many options, but amongst them only accurate response is knight to g4. Rest all leads to miserable position for the black. So let's see each by turn. If your opponent plays either the move queen to a5 or queen to b6, both can be made with the same deciding blow. Let's say queen to a5, and there comes boom! What a blow! Well, if king to d7, then f captures g6 and black is pretty much busted. So black has to accept this piece sacrifice. Afterwards, the simple move in the world, f captures g6 check. And once again king cannot move due to the discover check, so black has to take this pawn. And now white will simply gain the rook in the corner, which not only attacks the bishop, but as the black king is isolated and open, there is always a chance to checkmate this poor guy. One of my blitz game here continues with knight captures h1, which allows me to prove my point, as after the sequence of moves, queen h7 check, king to f8, bishop to h6 check, king to e8, queen to g8 check, king to e7, bishop to g5 check, king to d7, and the prettiest checkmate on the board, queen to f7. The second move I want to consider is queen to d7. Well, after this move, white has a simple refutation starting with knight to a4. White's idea is whatever black plays, let's say knight captures h1, then here comes knight captures c5, pawn captures c5, queen to g7, and after the move rook to f8, we are not interested to play bishop to h6 because then black can survive with queen to d6. But instead of that, this lethal reply, queen captures e5, and by force, black has to give up the queen. Probably the most trickiest queen move is c7, but anyways, white has the equally tricky reply, bishop to b5. So not only rook is hanging, but white is sacrificing another piece, and let's see what happens if black accepts it. C captures b5, we will play knight to d5, attacking the queen, and after the only logical reply, queen to e5 check, white wins on the spot with b4. Bishop captures b4, and now the easiest move, king captures knight. And not only material is balanced, but white has some severe threats, which in fact black cannot parry all of them. So if black cannot capture the bishop, how about capturing the rook in the corner? Well, this is even a worse scenario for black, because after the continuation knight to d5, attacking the queen, queen to a5, and the simple move c3, how the hell on earth black is going to save this many threats? One game against a low rated opponent continues with bishop to f2 check, and of course black cannot capture the bishop due to the knight c7 check, so my opponent plays pawn captures b5, but then the disaster struck after f captures g6, f captures g6, queen to g7. There's a checkmate threat, so black doesn't have time to save the rook. My opponent continues with knight to c6, saving the mate. I take the rook in the corner. He played king to d7. And no wonder the mate is around the corner, as after queen g7 check, knight to e7, queen captures e7, king to c6, knight to b4 check. If king to b6, then queen d6 is a checkmate, so my opponent's king has to come up. King to c5, and now the deciding blow, queen to f7. Here, no matter whatever black plays, black king is going to be checkmated. In the game, he preferred bishop to g4, but after white's next reply, queen captures f2, my opponent simply resigned, as after knight to f2 and bishop to e3, the ultimate king hunt is finished right there. It's amazing that none of the queen moves are working in this situation, so let's see other alternatives for the black, and the first move I want to consider is f6, which again can be easily dealt with f captures g6, and after f captures g5, we will play this simple move g7. King to d7, all the same, but this time around black has an escape square on c7, so black can argue that this variation is somewhat better for him. But still, after white's next reply, that is knight to h3, no matter whatever black plays, the game will not last long. For example, if we continue with rook to e8, then queen to h7, and we are queening on the next move. So that's not good for the black. Well, what happens if we capture our rook in the corner? Well, pretty much same story, because we are going to play knight to g5, threatening the rook, rook to e8, and queen to h7, with idea of promoting a queen with a check. Last but not least, what happens if black captures the knight? I think this is the easiest one, as after pawn captures rook, queen captures h3 check, king to c7 and queen to h6. After the whole sequence, white emerged with an extra exchange. So finally, considering all these options, knight to g4 is the only reply which, if your opponent reaches this position first time, he will hardly consider. But anyways, even after this move, white has a nagging gauge, continues with queen to g7. So we are attacking two spots, so black response is force, black has to capture on g5, we are going to capture on h8, and after king to d7, white has this wonderful saving resource, knight to d1, which in fact give him the great advantage. The base sequence continues from here, knight to e3, knight captures e3, queen captures e3, and knight to e2. We have a unique scenario where both the kings are stuck in the center, but due to the brave attempt by white, at the end he come up with an extra exchange. That's it guys, I hope you enjoy and learn this wonderful tricky line in the bishops and the Vienna Opening. Remember, in your tournament practice, if you reach this position, then play the move f5, allow your opponent to play knight to f2, and then give this root shock with queen to h5 and get some great attacking victories. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll meet you in my next episode very soon. Bye and take care.